Hey, Honey Wash Day. This is Toksa Hour, and I am Maggie Ross, and my cat is live under the table. I'm coming live from Porcupine, South Dakota, along the Porcupine Creek, where the porcupines roam. Well, today is April 5th, and for a good part of the world, they're celebrating Easter. Um, and I was really thinking the past couple of days, I've been watching Jesus of Nazareth, and so it's a series, it's a very long series. Um, I think Friday I watched from 5 to, I don't know, about 11, 12 o'clock, watched um, from that. And then last night we watched the ending parts of that where he, he becomes the minister or the priest or the prophet, the messenger, and he does the messages and then his death and then his rising. And so it kind of had me thinking a lot about that area, because we also know that Donald Trump is bombing the hell out of Iran, right? Like that's what he said. If you do not, in 48 hours, if you do not surrender, I'm going to bomb you to smithereens or obliterate you or something, he says. And so, anyway, I was thinking about that. It's like last week or the week before, Chaz was talking about fasting, and she fasted during the Ramadan. And the Ramadan is the time for the Muslim people, and it's like their holy time. So they're praying, fasting, and giving. Those are they're the things that are happening during this time. And so they do that for 40 days. Ramadan happens for 40 days. And then it came to its end, and then we know of the Passover. So the Jewish people celebrating the Passover, and the Passover is has to do with Moses, right? Like Moses freeing them from Egypt and taking them to the promised land. So doing the Passover. And then Jesus then, which is this time, is he is like the new enlightenment, or the new way, or I'm trying to remember the way they said it in the show. But just thinking about that, thinking about how things are different, are um happening. And so we have this time where it's like a holy season, or that's kind of what I was thinking about the other day. It's like this is the holy season for these people. And they come from Abraham. They descend from Abraham. And some of them still have like direct bloodlines from Abraham, from Muhammad. They have direct bloodlines, distinct bloodlines. So even Jesus, like I was asking all the questions. So Moses is like the great, 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 seven greats or something like that, grandson of Abraham. And then there's the descending down or whatever of children of Moses. And so oh no, not Moses, it's of Abraham. So Jesus comes from one of Abraham's other links. So they say he is a distant cousin to Abraham, or to Moses. Anyways, like why am I even talking about these things? Well, I'm talking about it is because like we're just in this world of loss that has lost its way, right? Like the whole world, like this leadership, the billionaire class, the Epstein class, the, whatever we want to call them, the Rothschilds, whatever we call them, they have lost their way. And when you go back and you look, so I was wondering, and why I wondered it, I don't know. But in the story of Jesus of Nazareth, what we watched last night, the priests, the priests are the ones that wanted him persecuted, as a lesson or whatever, because he is speaking blasphemy, that he was the messenger, he was the Son of God, and so they wanted that to happen. And so I was thinking about, why did he come? In that time, why did Jesus come in that time? And so in some of the messages that Jesus says, he talks about like, when like you're lost, like you're lost. He tells a story, and the story is in the movie. The story is he goes to the house of the sinners, or I guess the sinners, and his followers didn't want him to go. The prophets didn't, or his disciples didn't want him to go, and they thought it, that sin over there, that you can't be a part of that. And he said that he would go wherever he was welcomed. He would go to whoever's house would welcome him. And so he went to the sinner's house, and they welcomed him in. And they stopped, like doing all of their things at that time, and they sit down to listen. And he tells a story, about this father who had two sons, and one son said he wanted everything. Like, Father, like, your time is coming. I want to inherit from you. So give me your inheritance, or, like that. And so he does. He gives him some land and some whatever, and he goes on his way, that son. And the other son stays with the father. And so I think Chaz is going to join us too while I'm talking. But so in that story, he says that he's going to or the son goes, and he spends all his money, and he's just foolish, and he's just behaving how he's behaving, and then he ends up with nothing, and he's in a land that he doesn't know, and he has nothing, and he's sitting there in his nothingness and thinking about how, if he was with his family and wanting to be, like, if he was his family, he would not suffer, because when he was with his family took care of him, or they took care of each other, and they made sure that each other were not in need. And so he continues that story, and he says, so the son decides to return home, and so he goes to return home. And so he's walking back to his father's homeland, and he walks over this hill, and he sees his father, and his father sees him. And so he runs to his father, and he hugs his father, and he's so happy, and he says, Father, I'm sorry for I have left you, and I am sorry for what I have done, and saying those things. And then the father hugs him and tells him he is glad to see him, and then says, like, you look like you're having a hard time. And so he tells his, the rest of the family to get him some clothes, and feed him and bathe him, and so that he'll be okay. And so he does all these things, and he nurtures the one. And the other son comes, and he says, Father, how can he's mad. He says, how can you do that? I'm the one that stayed here with you. I'm the one that stayed. I didn't go. And I've done everything you've ever asked me. And why are you not treating me the same way? Why didn't you do that for me? Why are you doing it for him when he left? And so he says, because my son was lost, and he has returned, and now he is found. And so that is the blessing, is that he was lost, and now he is found. And so that story in the movie, there's, the disciples are on the outside of the sinner's house, listening to that story. And Simon then walks in, and then the guy that owns the, you know, the sinner house, what they would call it, but he they come together and like they touch each other's hearts or whatever. It's because that story moved them in such a way that they can have understanding that here is Simon, someone who works hard as a fisherman and trying to provide for his family and living a good Jewish life. And then here's the sinner. And then, but also understanding in that story that they can be found and they can become one together. And so, like, listening to that, it made me think about things. And then it made me think about Moses, because then I also had to watch, I always have to watch the Ten Commandments. And so, and Moses says, in the Ten Commandments, he says, you were kind of like you were it's not the word he uses, but it's like you were corrupt before, or when I found you or came upon you. You guys are misbehaving when I came upon you. So this is like the end of like whenever they're trying to not follow the rules of the commandments and stuff. And so it made me think. And so I asked the internet, like, how many times have the Jewish people not listened? And how many times have they not followed? And so before Moses, there's 10 times. So there's 10 times that the Jewish people disobeyed their God. And then, so then now and then even like that, like they don't really consider in the Jewish faith that they disobeyed about Jesus being the messenger or the Son of God, because they don't accept that. But as the evolution of Jesus and the messenger, and even into Islam, that would become like some of the additional parts of where they didn't listen. And so then they create so then the messenger, and so then this is where it's making okay, so they're trying to force a messenger. So the messenger God sent was Jesus, right, to them, and said, here's your messenger. But then they laughed him off and said, no, we're not going to take, and they had him killed. And then now they're saying they want a messenger. They want a message, God will come and rise or whatever they're expecting. So they're pushing it by doing all of these. They're like completely not even following the commandments, right? Like they're just in Israel, they're just in disobedience of the commandments. It's like the
Well, no, I was just thinking, and I'm so sorry for being late. I was walking down by the river. I was thinking about how, like, science is confirming indigenous cosmology, and all of the religions are coming here and saying, "Oh no, but our God is this way." And I'm like, "Well, why is science saying exactly opposite of what you're saying?" And and I think the great lie about religion is that there's something after. It's like we have right now, creator's given us a blessing, a beautiful, bountiful earth, and with all this beautiful stuff on it, and somehow they convince the masses to go to work in a factory for 8 hours a day for some made up money, so that they can be magically saved in the next generation. Like they work hard for us this year and give us all your stuff, and then next year when you're and now look at it, like people in America like work so hard their whole lives, and then when they finally retire in a day or two, they're dead because their health is not good, because they've been lied to and said, you got to work. I think that Christianity, Jesus went into the temple the week before the thing. The temple is the people who killed him, and the organized religion, the powers that be. And yet Christianity is like the most like cultish group of followers ever. Like how are you worshiping by materialism and by sacrifice, family sacrifice, because you do sacrifice your family time when you have to work 8 hours a day. There's no question. And so, how to turn that into something godly work is like, I think that's the greatest thing that the devil ever did, because all these people like working to live, and their lives are just gone past. And religion it's a thing, and when you think about Christianity, it's been changed so much, like the Ethiopian Bible, the St. James Bible, like the stories are different. But the sense of I think in a way, I mean, they're different, the stories, and the way that the people read them are different. I think after the Ethiopian Bible, everyone else was, all those Bibles were written to for followers, right? So for people to be scared of a God, and I'm scared of God too, but like as Indigenous people, our life is, pretty easy because our life is, laid out. You just got to be a good person and take care of your relatives and, not be, doing all that stuff, and you're good, right? I mean, it's not too hard to live in integrity and be a good person and all that kind of stuff. It is, sure, but it's not too difficult. It's pretty simple to figure out. There's not any philosophical, mind jumps that we have to be able to make if, to believe that a virgin gave birth to the messenger of God, those kinds of things that they just like sort of that don't make sense. Our ways are very centered on stuff that's real, right? The seasons and the stories, the myths that we make up, those are same as those stories. That's why I'm so glad that you were in the middle of that myth that you were telling when I jumped on, because they're myths, right? These are the Christian myths. These are the Muslim myth. These are the myths that the people tell themselves to keep the people in line. And and it doesn't ask the people to teach themselves. I've been thinking a lot about that 50% of Americans here are illiterate. They're literate to a 6th grade level. 50% of Americans. That's the number. And so also I was reading this week, inspired by a TikTok about that 1 in 20 people have the psychotic or the psychological makeup of a narcissist and of someone who has psychopathy, and someone. So basically the thing is they call it the deadly triad of mental health, which is, I only care about myself, I don't care how about my actions hurting you, and what was the other one? And I'll do anything to make myself successful. So like those are 3 personality traits that 1 in 20 Americans have, that they don't care about your feelings. 1 in 20. I mean, and I think that us guys in trauma situations, that's a little bit higher because of PTSD and CPTSD and all that stuff. But in normal American society, 1 in 20 people don't care about your feelings. And so that's what I think, this sort of crazy, Christianity focus, but like, the focus on the bad parts, right? They focus on the bad parts of Christianity instead of the good parts. And so like everything Jesus said, be good to my neighbor, choose my, all this stuff, like who are my brothers and sisters, they disregard. And so it's really hard in my mind, because no one really cares about teaching, raising good kids. They just raise about obedient kids. Obedient kids, they do this and stay out of line, they're successful. And if you're successful in the mainstream world, you got to sacrifice a lot of integrity. So, and people don't recognize that. If you're successful out there in the world, you got to do a lot. And sometimes it's not good things, right? You got to be stab people in the back. You got to get ahead and do the corporate, and it's not the nice people that are leading these Fortune 500 companies. These are the people that would stab you in the back and do all the time, right? And so why do people want to, why is that a success? And so I feel like Christianity, what they've done to it with capitalism and white nationalism, they've really done a disservice, so.
Well, even in it, like it's such, like I get into stories, like I love to listen and to think about stories and stuff. But how come it always still has to be white Jesus? Like,
Well,
make us one with one that looks like he's from Syria or from Jordan or from, Palestine, in that area, because I thought that was like, why is it everybody else has got some color to their skin in this movie, but Jesus is coming, his see-through blue eyes and light skin and blonde hair. Like, how, explain that to me. Like, why are we still with white Jesus? Like, it's clear now he's not white Jesus, like
yeah.
there is no white Jesus.
Well, folks from West Asia, or like Middle Eastern folks, they call it West Asia because that's, Middle Eastern is centering the Great Britain, but those people are American because of that very point is what you're making right there. Because apparently, when they were deciding who's white and who's not, if you look into these this white people came from America, right? Before America, there was no such thing as white people. White people came about, created by the bankers, basically, the wealthy, basically.
Yeah.
So that, and I think, and I've been thinking, and I know this is sort of like a conspiracy theorist, but I think about like Jewish people, like at that time, they were being treated as bad as everyone else, right? They were being pushed out of every community. And so, like chattel slavery, which was, started kind of by them. I feel like chattel slavery was a way, and not Jewish people, in general, but a lot of the wealthy people that were trading slaves were Jewish people. And I almost feel like, anti-blackness and anti-indigeneity is kind of a tool that the military industrial complex and these wealthy people have been using for the last 500 years in order to, protect, their idea of Jewishness in a sense with the ultra wealthy and all that stuff. Because, since the banks have been in control of everything, the only Holocaust we can talk about is the Jewish Holocaust. And that's the only one that we care about. We don't care about the Native American one. We don't care about the Armenian one. We don't care about all the other people that died in World War II.
The Bolsheviks.
That's right. And so, like, there's and it's all propaganda, right? So, protecting the Epstein class, which is definitely, not to say that they're all Jewish, but they're not all white either. And so, whiteness is something created by wealthy people, and war is something that's profited off of by wealthy people. And the intense, there's a lot of people who think that America had to, we had to be Holocaust did in order for us to have this great country. Well, what is this great country? We have more people in jail. We have we're destroying the environment. I was trying to be positive this morning, went down to the river to say some prayers, and I got down there and it was all freaking polluted by the runoff. And I hate that. Like, we know better, and yet it's worse and worse and worse. And they're putting in people like the Epstein class, these rapers of children and land, and they don't care. And then they look at us like we're supposed to take them seriously and have respect for them. And I think that white people need to distinguish themselves for the good and the bad. Like, are you the Epstein class, or are you our relatives and in the poverty class? Because poverty is made up, right? And they're okay with us guys being the poor for 500 years. They're okay with stealing our land and then us having nothing for all this time. They're okay with that. Everyone here in America is okay with us guys being poor. And if economics is a question of policy, right? And these guys are putting money toward the depraved actors in our society, the depravest, right? These guys are freaking cannibals and have been for centuries. That's why this thing is like, it's coming to fruition. We know about it. It's it's not good. I mean, knowing stuff doesn't make people happy, and that's what I keep telling people. Like, sure, it's okay to like be educated, but be prepared to change your whole perspective on stuff, because there's a reason why 50% of us are illiterate, because it's cause racism comes from illiteracy, right? People are afraid of things that they don't know, and so they keep people stupid, so they're afraid of other people, and the rich continue to make money, and we just end up in jail. Everyone's okay with that.
One of the things that I think is really interesting is, where is illiteracy? So who's illiterate? So when you think about that, and then you go over and you get the records. I've got a fly hanging out with me, but you go and you get the record from Iran. They're like 90% literate.
That's right.
Palestine, like the 98% literacy rate. We're bombing the heck out of these people for forever, disrupting their lives forever, but yet they're still managing to produce the highest literacy rate in the world, or in their nation, whatever, and then here we are in America trying to act like we're all it, and we're all just not even readers.
We're horrible people. We're judgmental. We don't think other people are, human. I mean, that's the degradation, which is white supremacy, right? The arrogance of exceptionalism, the capitalism has created consumers. We're not citizens, we're consumers, and so people don't care about community; they care about consumption. And how do we used to think about the future and all that stuff. Now we just think about right now and getting likes on Facebook and doing all this. It's all immediate gratification. We used to plan for 7 generations out. Now it's all just like grant funding, sure, that, and I'm not, the whole system is messed up. And like I used to think, and I just posted this on my Facebook too, like I used to think that I always dream of a different world. Like I always see ways that we could do it different. I've never once accepted this as a normal and natural place. And so I think a lot of people just want to be in charge of this place, right? They just want to run the things. And look, every system is like, people who are eating babies and raping children. Yeah. I mean, it's like the academy, the universities, all tainted by Jeffrey Epstein. All of the like, where is there a safe place without the arts? The fashion, and like, there's no safe place without these people. And so, like, I don't know. It's easy for me to yeah.
I was thinking about that, like, so I'm wearing my Every Child Matters shirt today by choice. It's like I'm going to wear that today because there's a class of people that eat children and rape children and do all this stuff to children. And so today is supposed to be like the holiest day, right? It's Easter Sunday. And so it's the commemoration or the acknowledgement that Jesus had died for our sins. And then he rose to go, he ascended to heaven to go be with the Creator, whatever. Man, this fly is lucky I do not have a fly swatter, because it just won't leave me alone. But I was thinking about that, like how we have, like, what you're talking about, this level of capitalism and this where they threaded or they mixed it all up and said, this is what Christianity is today. And if Jesus came today, and if it was done in the way like it had been done in the past, that he was born amongst them would be in the Middle East.
That's right.
Or West Asia, whatever we're calling it. But that's where he would be born amongst them. And so if Israel was really of them, they would be concerned about that, instead of like obliterating everybody, right? Just mass murdering everybody, just committing genocide and ethnocide, whatever, just doing whatever they're, but they're not of them. So that's why they don't care, right? What they're doing
That's right.
to the people there. And so if he's born amongst them, they probably already sacrificed him.
Yep.
Or her, whoever it is that comes as the messenger. And so I was thinking about that. I also kind of have a quirky thought too about, my Uncle Chuck, he used to sell this sweatshirt that had I can't, anyways, it had all the women carrying bundles or whatever. So every indigenous nation on this continent, it is the woman that brought the message or whatever. And so I wonder if it would be blasphemy if I could get my uncle to redo that and put Mary.
Mm.
I wonder who would just be mad about that, bringing Mary as the messenger, their messenger.
Well, Latino folks have already accepted that. Like they already accept the Mary. They pray to Mary more than any other part of the church, right? Like that's and that's exactly it. When you think about it too, like the demonization of Mary and from the get-go. And we know that Mary Magdalene was like, either Jesus's, partner, but definitely, one of his teachers and students. And, the part where, the Jesus's words and Jesus's life and the church are not compatible at all. And so there's that, that fear-based part of it that says we have to do all this, and the other thing is that like Jesus died for your sins. So like, no, Jesus, you got to pay for your sins. Like that's how they get away with doing horrible stuff. Oh, because Jesus died. And if I say, I'm so sorry, Jesus, then I don't have to, pay for those sins. Well, no, fuck no. If you did something horrible like that, you need to pay for those sins. And that's how they justify slavery, right? Like that's how they say that they can still be good people. We've never dealt with the horrible facts of chattel slavery in this country. Yeah, that's right. Like there's a yeah, there's we
you
gave money.
You and I, we're gonna sit in prison, and the Palestinians, they're gonna get executed. They're gonna have the largest mass hanging of people occurring in Palestine, in occupied Palestine. That's what's going to be happening here pretty soon. As soon as, so they have like 6 days after the conviction from their terrorist court, then they have to hang them. And so there's going to be this huge mass hanging that's going to be happening in occupied Palestine, and of the people who make this big argument about the kingdom of Israel. Man, I think I need to just go have a conversation with some of these people and just punch them in the nose.
Well, and I just learned this from someone who was protesting, and someone was interviewing them. Most Jewish people were opposed to Israel before the Holocaust, right? Because why would they want to be going anywhere? Like they should just be able to live as free people wherever they are. Why do they need their own space for themselves? Just like for white people, any ethno state is a bad idea, right? We learned that in South Africa. Any place where you can do horrible things to people of color is bad. But somehow America has propagandized itself because 50% of us are sixth grade level readers, Maggie. I mean, there's a reason why we accept this exceptionalism, the story, why we all, even though we're brown and black, identify with that flag, and, some of our people are, very staunch, very proud to be Americans. And I offend them with every time I speak about how horrible this country is. They take it personally because they identify so strongly with that. And that's, that's trauma. And people who are, live and comfortable in authoritarian, lifestyle, anything that goes against that is traumatizing, right? People don't like me, for just for existing up there because they heard I said something somehow about so and so, and like that shakes up their state. You know, when you have a fragile identity based on violence, it's really hard to take. That's why we have all this lateral violence in Indian country. It's because someone says something that shakes the, you know, the status quo. We have all these little tiny Trumps running all over the place, and no one ever holds them accountable ever. And there's all these women setting them up and doing stuff. We know them, you know. We just let them go, and they keep getting elected council, and people, you know, because they're afraid. We're afraid. We do the politics of fear, and, you know, not the politics of, you know, vision. When's the last time you ever had a council person, you know, give out their, you know, their policy agenda? No, they just do everything that they can, and then go run away so the people don't have to ask them any questions about their votes. You know, there's no kind of, like, you know, open and, you know, communication, and it's all based on, you know, so and so's, you know, it's all mean based, right? You know, it's like we're meaner than the white people in our politics. We, at least
The
white people.
judgment, right? That
Yeah.
judge level of judgment that we cast. And I think about that, like, I think last week I was talking about watching this video of this guy, you know, he just goes up to this homeless guy that's on the street and then just sets up this little foldable table and stuff and foldable chairs. And then he puts some food on there. And then he gets the guy and has him sit down. And then he serves him. And then he gets, you know, like his little water or whatever, and he gets him a cup, and then they sit and they visit. They visit and they, you know, eat and drink. And then I don't know how long, it, you know, it seemed like it was a long time because they do the fast speed of it. So but he sits there and the guy cries and he talks to him and then he thanks him, you know, and then he goes back to where he was sitting and the guy pulls up his stuff and he goes on. But that's what this guy does. I mean, he'll just go find somebody to eat lunch with or eat dinner with, and he'll provide all of the things and go sit down with them and not judge them, but visit. And I thought, why, I don't know, I'm really, really perplexed, I guess, because like I think about like people from the church and they get frustrated, or, you know, they've abandoned us on the reservation. Like we don't, like we used to, I was baptized Catholic and I would go to St. Paul's Church, and it's just right down the road here. And that was our family church. We all went there. We had our church hall. That's where we had our community dinners, and everything happened there at the church at St. Paul's in Porcupine. And then yes, there's Christ the King that's up in Porcupine that had its own people, you know. But the church made some decision some time ago that they were going to start shutting down churches. And so all of who we were at St. Paul Church no longer exists because they moved the church. You know, we were supposed to go to Christ the King Church. That's not my church. I don't go to that church. I want nothing to do with that church because that's not my people. That's not my family. That's not my relatives. It's a whole different group of people. And so you really look at like what at least on this reservation, what the Catholic Church did, it start to like look at powering people. So what people are most influential on the reservation that we can gain the most from by getting involved with those families, and the rest of them we don't really care about. And so they used to also like visit. They would come out into the community. So the sisters and fathers, they would come and they would have dinner. They'd come and pray with you at your house or visit with you at your house. And so we used to host them. My mom did. And then this where I live right now, there used to be a log cabin that Father Charles lived in. It was my great grandma Julie, her brother Charlie, but he had passed away, him and his wife. And so Father Charles lived in that house, and our family took care of Father Charles. And so like all of these things, for me, I look at the decline of Christianity on the reservation is because you left us. You know, like nobody came, nobody did the work anymore, nobody brought us together. It's only certain people. You had to be of a certain family that you got the privilege to be a part of that group. Other than that, you're over here and you're without. And so when people started returning back to the Lakota way of life and doing that ceremony, then what ends up happening is many of the leaders within that way in our Lakota way of life then kind of took up the same process of church. You know, like you have to you know, like it's a responsibility to take care of each other, but it was like everything became about money there too. And so even Lakota way of life now is like capitalism. Like what can you give me for that service or whatever? And it isn't that taking care of anymore. And so I think Lakota people always like accepted Jesus or the teachings of Jesus. And this is just, you know, I think of my grandmother talking about it and stuff is because he lived the Lakota way of life. He was humble. He believed in, you know, like you give it all, you know, like you take care of people. Like he lived, that's the story they heard, and that's the story they accepted. And so that's why Lakota people, you know, were more prone to accept who Jesus was. And my grandma said that like, they didn't, you know, like they look at him like he's the, he was a, like he is a med, you know, like he's a healer. He was a healer of his people. And so that's how like the way we make the association or connection. And so I get kind of I really struggle with it because I think about the failures of the church and the failures, but then also like what's our own responsibility in it? Like we can't be sitting here waiting for a church or waiting for a group of other people to come in and take care of us. Like we have to get back to that part of taking care of ourselves and having our own connection and relationship with the Creator, not based off of what somebody's telling us to do, but we know that Pte she came and she brought a bundle. And you know, like if you know those things, you know the story. And so we all carry it. If you have your own chanupa, then you know the story and you carry those values that she brought. And so you think about what she says, you know, she isn't talking about patriarchy. She isn't talking about those things. She's talking about being a good relative. And she talks about, I mean, there's a reason, right? Like it wasn't that everything was all, you know, our whole, you know, we're probably very similar as human beings, you know, making mistakes and not doing good or not being good relatives and doing all of those things. So she comes and she gives the message and she says this, basically predicting there's things coming down the road. You guys better, you know, do this and learn this because this is what's going to get you through those hard times. And so I get real perplexed about it. Like I don't know, like I think you know, like I have respect for those teachings, but I also want to question them. And shouldn't we be allowed? But then it's always we were taught to, you don't question, you know, the Bible. But why can't we question the Bible? Like who wrote it?
Yeah.
Trump?
Well, yeah.
Trump
No. I mean that's what it is. Though that it's authoritarian, right? There's no other authority in America other than, you know, violence and that's the authority, and they use Christianity to dull the masses. You know, do this and then you'll be good in the afterlife. You know, and whatever you do, Jesus has already died for, so it's okay. You know, it's okay. I mean, so those are some very dangerous things. That's a very dangerous way to think. And you know, I think that you know, what did Pate Saint say when she came to us? She said, you know, she said to that guy who was thinking rape thoughts, you're done. Your ghost, you're now bones. Like the elements came up and turned him into bones. Like she didn't do it. It was the elements who said, don't even think like that and think like this. And so that's what every culture has. Every culture has a defining moment that says, this is who we are and this is how we think. And if you don't do these things, you're not this thing. And so for us, I think the problem is, in so many ways, Christianity and colonization and the trauma of assimilation, the boarding schools, all of this, white supremacy for the last, 150 years, how long has it been since we signed the Treaty of 1868? The goal of a culture is not to to be like we were in the past, right? The goal of a culture is to continue to do those things. And, creating community is something they don't want us to do. Because if we have community, we're doing our own thing without them in there, and I think that probably, the churches stopped coming around once we got the right to do our ceremonies, right? In 1878, then they're, oh, okay, well, you guys want to do your own thing. Well, we're going to stop investing in you because you're not doing it the way we want it. Then go ahead and just live there, be all poor without us. And you won't have our money, you won't have whatever. But sure, they have St. Joe's that's over there showing those snot-nosed kids making millions of dollars every year. And, I was raised Catholic. My dad was a deacon in the Catholic Church. He did mass, so that's what I grew up so in that. Went to a Catholic school. My grandpa was Episcopalian, right? So when he married my grandma, they said that she married down. So not only did at that time my grandpa probably had as much land as my grandma, but my grandma was third generation trader trapper from Sinte Gleshka. Like she was a Sichongo down there, and they were Catholic. And so my grandpa then became a Catholic. And so what you're saying about the way that the Catholics and the Episcopalians manipulated Indian people, it's absolutely true. They brought in money when they needed to, controlled us, did whatever. And then when we got to be like our own, they're like, okay, well, go ahead and do your own things. We're going to go over here to Indonesia or something where we can control people way more than we can here now. And so I think that's the thing about religion is it's all about control. The thing about indigenous spirituality is it's all about integrity, right? Like we have to be people of our words, and we have to protect people, and we have these things that Creator said, if you don't do this, like that's going to be bad. If what happens if you don't do what she said? You get turned into bones, right? The elements will turn you into bones. So it's not hard to be a good person. And that's the thing. It's not that other warrior. He did nothing. He just didn't think bad thoughts, right? And then he became the messenger. And so it's not hard to not think bad thoughts. It's not hard to not do bad stuff, and even if you have bad thoughts, you think those things, you got those from somewhere, right? Like back in the day, people wouldn't even say bad things around kids. You wouldn't say, you'd be very protective of what you get. Nowadays, people are watching, true crime and getting into the ugliest of things all the time. And so our subconscious is already experiencing those things. So when bad things happen, it's not a surprise. It's because that's what we're eating. That's what the media is we're eating. John Trudell said, you got to be careful of your spirit because we're in a place that eats spirits. And that's absolutely true. If you could go to, academia, they eat your spirit there. That you can go over here because you got to conform. You got to conform to every system, right? You got to conform to that system. And so it makes you, you lose your spirit. Ask anyone. I've not been in that system, but I know people are, unfulfilled. They live unfulfilled lives in capitalism. There's a really great book called Bullshit Jobs by David Graeber, who I just love, and I probably mention him every time I'm on here. But it talks about bullshit jobs, and a lot of jobs, especially in academia, where you got executives and all this stuff. If you're not teaching a class or not doing research, there's no reason you need to be on a college campus, I think, because like all these all the other like professionals that are on education, those guys aren't they're not doing anything. They're not changing anything. They're just like there to fulfill, to create corporate mentality in academia, right? Corporations destroy everything. They control, destroy the government. TSA. Now they got the pre-check. It's like there's problems that they create, and the government like, oh, there's an industry behind it. They'll solve it. Well, no, industry makes everything bad, and they think the industry is gonna protect the water themselves. Oh, they'll just regulate themselves. No, they're eating babies down in the basement in the bunker. They don't give a shit about us. But it's hard because I want for there to be a future for this planet, but in this country, but I'm so smart that I've been watching this for so long. I just don't see a way where a future where we don't change everything in totally, because the whole system is based fossil fuel based. It's based on competition. Violence is the thing that we don't talk about, but we all live under, right? So
but even in it, Chaz, like you think about our current situation of where we are with the Iran, Donald Trump. Like there's no reason for us to be trying to even worry about the Strait of Hormuz. There's no reason. Like that's not even a major contributor to our own economy. We have enough natural resources here to take care of America. But we're delving and getting involved in this stuff because it isn't even about taking care of Americans. It's about the billionaire class, capitalism. Yep. And so those guys are the ones, like if we can create problems in the Middle East, these prices are going to go up. There's all of this other, backside of production, all of this. So then they make the profit as we struggle. They make the profit. And so when we think about that, like how does this affect? It's all of this is about them. It's not about us. It's not about us. And so you like in the state of South Dakota, did you see the governor, the Republican governor primary results? Every Republican running for governor has this big old Donald Trump statement. Like they're all, and it's like, really, Mr. Christian over there, you're all 100% MAGA. You're all supporting this Epstein class, Mr. Christian man over there. I am getting to this place where I'm getting internally outraged that I want to go knock on some of my MAGA friends' doors. Just go over there and knock on. Let's have a conversation about this. Why are you supporting these guys? You tell me. You want to take away my granddaughters, my daughter's right to make decisions about our bodies. You want to do that, but yet you support 100%. You're supporting a man who is raping, who is in a class of people who eat children, who even in themselves, in the Epstein files say that they take those babies and throw them in the Michigan lake.
Yeah. No, see, you said it wrong because you said MAGA friends. I have no MAGA friends. Like, I don't have respect for them. I don't think that, and I think it's because they're, and I mean, I don't even think they're good people, Maggie. Like, I don't think you can be a good person and support a rapist. Like, that's a line for me. And guess what? He's been a rapist since we knew since 2015. And so, like, who's responsible for this?
Before that, though, right?
Yeah.
He's been
right.
way before 2015.
Yeah, but we knew the FBI had evidence in 2015. And in 2015, Barack Obama was the president. He should have put that out there. in 2016, and after that, I mean, definitely Obama should have put that. They should have used that in the primaries, the Democrats. They should have done that.
They should have voted for Bernie Sanders.
We should have voted for Bernie Sanders, but guess what? Bernie Sanders not in the Epstein class. Bernie Sanders is not some guy who's going to blow Bill Clinton for a loan, right? Like
Hillary
that's all they
Clinton
care
was
about.
though, right?
Hillary Clinton
was.
is the Epstein. She's in there. Guess who else was in there? Her chief of staff was sending Giselle Maxwell. I love you. Said something about I love you. You're so sexy. Oh, Hillary Clinton's not chief of staff or lawyer. The lawyer for those guys. She was not the chief of staff. It was a lawyer. So she's a woman of color too. It's like she's in there, like, working for these devils, and they're doing this stuff, and they know they're doing it. I never liked Hillary Clinton. I should have broke up with my ex when I found out she voted for Hillary Clinton, because I was so offended. I was literally
the red flag.
My body reacted to that knowledge. I was like, I was like one of the first fights. Like she had gotten mad at me for multiple days, but the first thing I ever got mad at her was when I found out she voted for Hillary Clinton, and I was like, what the fuck? And I was like, really? And so I think that that was a thing that we people don't pay attention to politics. They don't pay attention to these things. So they're not so aware. And you and I know that the left and the right are, if you're not an anarchist and a socialist, you're the same thing, right? And so the liberals are doing us a disservice. Like I try to not pay attention to them, because it's so hurtful. Like they just think that we're gonna this time it'll be good. This time it'll be good. The Democrats are going to do. The Democrats have been eating themselves alive for 20 years, my whole life, and they don't care. And Stephanie Herseth voted against healthcare. Healthcare should be a right, and these rich people pretend like it's something that we can talk about. Like all these things, like energy. Like I was at a conference this week, and I don't know why I do these things, but I was mad at myself because I went to this fancy place, and it reminded me of the first time I went to a Sierra Club stuff, because I started this, working for them in 2002, and it was a fancy restaurant, and or a resort that we were staying at in Bozeman, Montana, which is like so beautiful. And I was just triggered, like, at that point, we could have made an impact, we could have changed things. At this point, we as Indian people, as indigenous people, we've been saying the same thing for 500 years and no one listens. And so I told them that. I said, we should, it was a clean power thing. And I was like, we should not be making money off of power, because people need it to live. We should not be making money off of medicine, because people need it to live. Like the reason why you guys are all here is because the economies get built around these things. Economies get built around genocides. They get built around prisons. They get built around missiles. I'm glad that you are up on all this Iran stuff. We're getting our butts kicked over there. All of our bases have been destroyed, they say. And Iran is putting out these amazing Legoland videos. Have you seen them? They're so hilarious, and I love it. And we are the laughingstock of the world, because the president is our president, and everyone else is just acting like it's all cool. Those South Dakota governors are going to be able to, those candidates are going to be able to, in 10 years, they don't care. Like these racists, they don't care. They know they're in a race war. The only us guys are the people who like keep thinking that, oh yeah, we're one of them, and we should not be. We need to be thinking about creating our own society that doesn't like have standards, just come up on with, white supremacy. Everything that we've gotten everything that is good in this country has been paid for by blood in the body of black and brown people. Everything medicine has learned about gynecology. All that stuff was done on people without permission. Everything that we know about anything has been done, without. They just found out about the female reproductive organs, known about the men since 1922 or something like this. Just in 2016 have now figured out the women's like it's so crazy. And the way that this whole thing with Epstein and all these guys comes out, like what did they do? They went to the textbooks, they went to the school books, and they set the propaganda. Like the reason why the MAGA people in America think that they're being attacked is because that's what the propaganda is telling them. And so they think that the people, the reason why they can't, why there's only half the chips in a bag is because the illegal immigrants are taking them. They believe what they're told. And ignorant people believe what they're told. Intelligent people verify, right? And so they don't have people out here verifying facts. They have people that they just of course the problem is not Elon Musk. The problem is Jesus Hernandez coming across. It's like no, like, but they're so racist, and they've always been racist. Like from the very beginning, white people are taught about their exceptionalism. They're taught to protect that they're different. They're taught all these things, and we can't relate really because we're such good people. Like us as Indigenous people were raised to treat everyone nice and do all this stuff. They're not raised like that. Like we got to stop like just accepting everything. Like, and a lot of brown people are raised like white people, so you can't trust them. Like people will stab you in the back, and then smile and post on Facebook the pie they're eating. Like they don't care. Like people do not care. And so I think that for me, I guess at this point, being an organizer, right? Like how can I continue to organize people when I feel like they don't care about each other? And I think it's just that what we have to do is always work on ourselves and try to be good people and try to continuously be as forgiving and as loving with everyone in your lives as you can be, because that's the revolution. The revolution is not like winning and doing all that stuff. The revolution is living in kindness and in joy and living like Jesus. Like, of course, everyone wants to be like Jesus. Jesus was like a cool guy, and he saved people, and he made wine into fish and all that stuff, or fish into wine, whatever he did. Jesus was great, and we all want to live like Jesus. The reason we don't is because of capitalism, right? Like, because people are selfish and greedy, and so they're incompatible. The stories of Jesus. Jesus is a Lakota, right? I believe that too. I believe all the way that anyone who I think is godly can be Lakota. And when you're godly, you listen to a higher God, to higher messages. Like your messages aren't coming from the propaganda owned by Ghislaine Maxwell, right? That's not, because you are not able to be swayed, right? You have an inner core. I just said this morning, I'm just so grateful that my dad took all the effort that he did into making me a good person. Because there's nothing that, the propaganda can say that would make me believe that Indian people are less than. It would nothing that would ever convince me that we are, less than Washijus. And because Washijus don't even know their history, like they don't even know nothing. Like I don't like why do they think they're better than us? I know. Why do they think they're better than us? They don't know nothing. And the 50% of them can read like sixth graders. So like, I don't go out of my way to work with non-Indians anymore. A lot of people, want to lead their movements and do all that stuff and be a part of them. But like, I'm done. I've spent my last 20 years trying to convince people to listen and that we're human beings, and it's only gotten worse. So
yeah, I think I've like the first time, like I think in my own indoctrination or whatever, on the reservation, growing up, and then you're just automatically, I remember I was gonna be 18, and I remember when my brother turned 18 and he got to vote for Bill Clinton. That was and everybody was a Democrat, like everybody, because supposedly there is these democratic values that existed, and they were similar to what our values are. And so we were Democrats. And so my whole life, that whole idea of being a Democrat, standing by those values, well, those are, like I stand in Lakota value, right? Like I stand in what we believe and try to fight for those things. And how I become, like acquainted or friends with Republican people is they started sending me to peer. And I never ever really thought about things, but I go to peer and I would work with these people and, establish friendships or relationships with them. And we're working on education standards and doing all of these different things. And so I'm always going to peer work. And then it dawned on me one time that I was actually prejudiced. And the realization that I was prejudiced against Republicans, and it is
Yeah.
and it was so funny. I said it to my boss and I said, I need to have a meeting with you. And he came in and I said, I have, so I talked to him about being prejudiced and he's like really looking at me thinking, it's based off of race, me being Lakota, working with white people or whatever. And I told him that I've been prejudiced against Republicans. Like I never thought of them as human beings. And so he laughed and he is from Minnesota. So he's like, I'm independent. He kind of I'm not Republican or Democrat. I'm an independent. I come from Minnesota. I don't, I just that's what I am. And so anyway, so learning that, like, so then I learned to listen without like the judgment. And so when I say that I have MAGA friends or MAGA friends or whatever, that exists on both sides. Like you have the red and the blue. So the blue MAGA is the vote blue no matter who.
Yeah.
They make excuses for everything. And then the red is same thing. But so I have friends on both sides of that aisle that call, they would be identified as MAGA. And so I try not to, like, I give them a hard time. Like I'll question their belief. Sometimes we'll have conversations that go back and forth, and then we don't talk to each other for a long time because
Yeah.
like I offended them,
Yes. See, I would consider them to be like Zionists. Like I think
Mm.
MAGA would be like Zionists. Like
Yes,
Zionists would
yes.
be,
And they
that
are
Jewish people, yeah,
in
that
the
Jewish
state of
people
South
believe to
Dakota, they
exist,
are.
and so do white, like America. So like if you think Israel deserved to exist and you think America deserves to exist, that's a white supremacist take. It is like, and you can't get around that. And so there's a lot of racist MAGA on both sides and make America great, right? Like America was never great because it never included, indigenous people. It never included, black folks. It has been racist every decade. You can find some place where they're trying to be exclusionary, right? Like they even forced citizenship upon us. Like we didn't really want it. And frankly, I don't know why they're trying to get rid of it. Like, go ahead, take my citizenship. Like, go ahead, Trump. You don't want to be, whatever. And so funny because he's trying to take away birthright citizenship. Isn't like aren't three of his kids anchor babies? Like, yes. Like it's like the laws are for like, and he's also going to vote for. And that's what and that's what it is. It's like logically, he is a horrible man. But these MAGA people who still support Trump are racist rapists, right? Like they condone that behavior. And so if you still condone Trump at this point, that's what you are. If you think Trump is the problem with the Republicans, then you're MAGA too. Like that, if you think it's just Trump, then you're wrong. And so many people think it's just Trump. And if Trump wasn't there, then the Republicans would do whatever. No, because it's the both sides vote for ICE. Both sides support, after George Floyd was murdered, in camera on slow mo, the Joe Biden gave more money to the cops. There's no taking white supremacy away from this country. And we were talking earlier, and I don't know if I said this, but I did say it, that the reason why Palestinian people in America, West Asian people are considered white is because of Jesus. Like the guy said, I'm from where Jesus is from. So if you consider Jesus to be white, I am white as well. So West Asian people are all considered white in the political and for the politics. And
My friend Nader said that he's Palestinian and he's
That's
a
right.
American Palestinian American. He's born here, but his mom and dad were born in Palestine, and then they moved here, and he was born here, and then they moved back to Palestine, and he's still here. But that's what he says. He says
Yep.
he's a white guy.
Yeah, and
No, he's all
because
dark skinned and everything.
well, and Jewish people are white in America, like and Irish people are white in America, and like in Ireland, they're not. They would never. They would, and in Ireland, which I love, is great. They would are very embarrassed about all their relatives who came here who are so racist. Like for them to like just jump in and be like, okay, yeah, Indigenous people deserve to die at Wounded Knee, and so a lot of the immigrants, a lot of people that were shooting at us we're Irish immigrants who just got off the boat, came over and killed us for existing. And so, I do think that there's something traumatizing about white identity. So if you consider yourself white, um, that's then you're basically a psychopath, right? So and that's not your fault, but you need to research that if you haven't understood identity in America. Everything's not like that deep. It is that deep. It is that deep for you to be consider yourself to be no other race besides us has to have their blood quantum out there. That's racist. I mean, that itself is racist. And so for
Well, they're
people
doing
to be
it to
like,
the Palestinians now too. Did you see
that's right.
that?
Yeah.
Israel is doing that to them now.
Yeah. Well, then the Israelis, none of them will be doing their DNA because they'll all be fine. Oh, you're from Poland. You're
All
from
from
you're from wherever.
Ukraine,
Yeah. Yeah. So
Poland,
go
and
on
Ukraine.
home. I mean, that's what the thing is I think Israel, they just need to go on home. Like every time there's a war, they all go home anyway. Well, go on home and stay there then,
And they sent like 100,000 Israeli people to Argentina.
Did they?
Yeah, and so then some of the people in Argentina are like saying, no, we don't want them here because they
Do they
know
got a
what's going
camp?
to.
Some kind of camp? Are they putting their people in a camp in Argentina or are they just
No, they're
buying stuff
just
up?
there. Well, Trump gave like $1 billion or something like that to Argentina to take them in also, and for them
Ah,
to refuge them and so they're gonna take over Argentina.
yeah, I'm
He bought
sure.
Argentina for them or something, and then probably buy Greenland and put them up in Greenland and wherever. I mean, we're buying all of these countries for
For
Israel
Trump's
still.
sons. Yeah, and Trump's sons to make money. It's just it's so crazy. The Jewish people, like white people, need to take care of their own. We shouldn't even be in those conversations. We are just the victim of their bad thinking. Jewish people and white people need to own their own self. Jewish people it is a race, it's a religion as well. White people just made up, it's just a made up thing. Like all of white people, there's no white people. You go back before they came over here, they were they were Dutch, they were French, they were whatever. They came over here to America, all of a sudden they're white.
White, yeah.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
became
All of a sudden
white.
you're white, and guess what? You're not black, because if you were a black, you'd be a servant, right? So that's or you can be white and you can control these other people. It's all based on authoritarian, who's on the bottom. And I think that since chattel slavery came around, the Jewish people have been not on the bottom. And so they've been continuously making sure with people like Epstein, getting $20 million from from who was that the big family, the big oh man, I can't remember them. Anyway, but he got $20 million to work for the Epstein class.
Kushner, no?
No, the oh the big conspiracy family, the one that they started Israel, right? Literally started Israel.
Oh,
The
the
same.
Rothschilds?
Yes. So the Rothschilds, are, you know, and Jewish people didn't want it, right? Jewish people didn't want it, but the Rothschilds wanted to create this country where they could, get rid of brown people. That is not okay. And so Israel and Europe and America, I think, are uh, could be just like, you know, I don't know, go up in flames or something. Like, I don't want it to like it be like a horrible thing, but like we could start over and like include everyone from the get-go instead of, not. But we have
Without the human race.
yeah, but we have these, we have economic slaves right now. We have prisons, where people are having to force, for slave labor, and nothing has really changed in America for the last 250 years. In a sense, we've gotten these little tiny things, but look, women can't even have control of they have abortions. We can't even have abortions. Like, it's like,
Can't
it's
even
crazy.
take birth control. Did you see that? That Trump is now changing all of that too, defunding birth control and pushing that you get an app on your phone and you do you keep track of your menstrual cycle, and there's no more condoms either. They're not giving out condoms anymore. So
Sick. They're just sick.
and so I don't know. Then they're gonna cry around because a bunch of babies got born, a bunch of
Yeah.
colored babies. People
Yeah.
of color had, because we love.
Yeah,
We
well,
have
they
love.
were they were upset about that. One of the programs that they killed with the USA aid was giving condoms to folks in Africa. And I remember one of the MAGA people were like, "Why are we paying for condoms?" And then they got this, because of AIDS, like, because we don't want that to spread. And they're all like, "Oh, oh, well, yeah." I mean, but like, it's like they think that if you help in anything with reproductive health, you're doing anything that makes anyone's life easier, it's like an offense to whiteness. Like, I really do believe like these guys, they're so insecure, and they're so afraid of all the stuff that they've stolen, all the stuff that they sit on like all day, like dragons, like all their stuff. Like, they're afraid of all of us coming for it. And so sad. Like you care more about stuff. They all care about more about stuff than they care about everything. I mean, that's why our government is now run by people who don't care about us, and has been
I
probably
think
since Reagan,
the
maybe.
biggest encouragement that can come too is saying we need to be looking at who is, like the message. So, like in South Dakota, all of the Republican people are 100% MAGA. So, we're probably not even, can't even think, oh, which one of those guys is the better. And so then we go over and we have to look at the Democrat side, like where are they at and who are they? Who are those guys running? Who's the independents running? And then the same thing as you go in and you start looking for the Senate and the House, and then when you're voting for your districts, and so this is any state should be thinking about those things and what is the message. And so one of the things is the investment of talking about Israel, and whether you're America first or you're Israel first. And so then they're saying Democrats are starting to understand that, and they're pulling back the message that they're not Israel first, they're America first. But then you have to go back and look at their voting record. What was their voting record saying? Because they may just turn around and still be Israel first once you reelect them. And
Yeah.
so the biggest like thing that came out is AOC. AOC came out and said that Israel has a right to exist.
Yeah.
Not that
Well,
Palestinians have a right to exist, but Israel, who is just obliterating and just assholing everybody, they have the right, not the people that actually come from the soil of those lands over there. Israel is the one that has the right to exist. And so AOC is just now plummeting, boom, 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 going
yeah.
down.
Well, and I think she changed though, because people were attacking her. Anna Kasparin, who is that journalist with the Young Turks, she's just amazing. She was calling her out on Twitter, I think, and I do think she changed her position. But yes, she's always been bad on this issue. Like, she always has been fun. She voted a bunch of times, and the Democrats are, there's like five of them, in the House that have consistently not voted for this kind of stuff, and she's never been among them. She's a player girl. Like, she cares more about the party and getting in power than she cares about the issues. And because that's just the way the system's built. Like
She just put the big skits on her trying to run for president. Like, these guys don't get it. We're not there. We are not Israel. We are not doing this. And so all these politicians are out there. And so the people who are winning and they're like, oh, are the people that are saying free Palestine. Those are the people that are starting to win in the states. Those are the people that are winning in their primaries.
Well, people are figuring out that it's illegal to protest and boycott Israel in this country, and that is ridiculous. It is ridiculous for us to be boycotted or banned from boycotting anything. We should be able to do whatever the hell we want. And for 37 states to be already have been manipulated by Israeli political operatives, I mean, that's exactly what it is. They're controlling the media now with CBS and everything. Larry Ellison owns the CBS. They control the J Street, which is what the APEC used to be. Now it's J Street. All this stuff. The Zionists are running our country, and they have been. They're running 37 state governments, obviously, and the federal government are all under control of Zionists. And Zionists are the same as MAGA, and because they think Israel deserves to exist, MAGA thinks that America deserves to exist, and they're not the majority of the country. They're not. They're not. But they're the loudest, and they're like currently in control. My dad was a Republican. I was growing. My dad was a Republican. He's they're not no Republican Indians around, but he was a Goldwater Republican, and so when I became a Democrat, I was definitely becoming a Democrat in opposition to him, because I was not a capitalist. I mean, I never was a capitalist, but at that time I didn't know that that's what it was. But I was just opposing him, and I think that the parties are they're both racist, right? They're both racist, and people who don't get that, who think that one party can choose the racist, one party is the problem, and I think that's why the Epstein people, the consultant class, pay both parties. They pay both parties. APAC supports both parties, and that's a true statement. John Thune has gotten over $500,000 from APAC in his career, and so they
a little bit more than that.
Yeah, and also Russia, like he's gotten from both parties, like both the Republicans and the Democrats are owned and operated by outside influences, and we do us a disservice when we pretend like even voting matters, because in the last election, I bet since 2016 they've been stealing it. Elon Musk, all this stuff. Like I don't have any faith in the integrity of our elections. I'm going to continue to try people involved to try to get them to be civically engaged, but I don't have faith in the system.
Yeah.
So
well, we have gone over, but that's okay. It was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. You want to have any closings or anything?
No, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And good luck to everyone. I think it's every day is seriously, like, good luck everyone. Hope we make it to the end. But so yeah, good luck everyone. See you. Bye.
Well, you guys have a great rest of your week. Enjoy your day today. The sun is out. The Oblaya store here in my community just burnt down this morning. It's like, geez, that store's been built in the 70s. It was run by my grandma Marge's first cousin Teresa. So my grandma Teresa and her husband built the store, and they ran Oblaya store, and then my aunt Arvine and my uncle Morris bought it from them, and they ran it. And then they sold it to Empowerment Zone. So the Empowerment Zone, Porcupine District ran a People's Market, and then that didn't pan out. And then now it became a secondhand store, but not no more, I guess. So
Oh,
that's the
dang.
history of our Oblaya store, our one store.
Well, geez, and
Anyways,
didn't an apartment building burn down over in Kyle? You guys are having a rough year.
And Kyle,
Yeah.
yeah, fire
Hey.
is getting us. But you guys have a great rest of your Easter day if you're celebrating Easter, or if you're just celebrating it being a good day, then have a good day, and we'll see you next week. Toksa.